Lena never expected her worst nightmare to unfold in front of a full restaurant. Four wealthy men laughed in her face, ripped the bill in half, and walked away as if she were invisible. But before she could even wipe her tears, a tall shadow stepped behind them. The billionaire owner, and he had heard everything. The morning light spilled gently through the tall glass windows of the Sapphire Room, the most elegant restaurant in the city's financial district. Crystal chandeliers glimmered overhead, and the air smelled faintly of roasted coffee beans and fresh pastries. Everything looked perfect, at least on the surface. Lila stood behind the counter, nervously smoothing the front of her apron for the third time in 10 minutes. Her hands always trembled a little during the morning rush, especially when she had to face customers with too much money and too little patience. But today felt heavier for reasons she couldn't name. Maybe it was the way she barely slept last night. Maybe it was the aching fear she carried everywhere, the fear of doing something wrong. Growing up, she had learned early that mistakes were dangerous. Her father had raised her alone, but life had never been gentle. Poverty forced her to mature fast, and criticism was something she wore like a second skin. Even now, as an adult, she apologized before she breathed. She carried that invisible weight as she moved quietly through the restaurant, offering soft smiles and careful steps. She never walked too loudly, never spoke too sharply, never drew too much attention. People treated her like background noise, and she had trained herself to accept it. Still, she longed for something simple, to be seen without being hurt, to matter in at least one person's eyes. But for now, she kept her head down and worked. At table 7, she dropped off menus for 4 men, wealthy regulars who always spoke too loudly, drank too much, and tipped too little. She swallowed her discomfort, murmured a polite, "I'll be right with you," and stepped back quickly. She didn't realize they were watching her leave, snickering under their breath. Across town, Adrian Hale stood in his penthouse office, staring at a skyline lined with steel and ambition. His reflection in the window looked exactly like what people expected. Tall, sharply dressed, expression unreadable. But behind his eyes lived a quiet exhaustion no one ever noticed. Adrian had built Hale Industries from nothing. Well, not nothing, but close. His parents had died young, leaving him with debt and a reputation to clean. He spent years climbing out of the hole, earning respect one brutal step at a time. Now he owned multiple businesses, including the Sapphire Room. Yet despite his wealth, Adrian carried a different kind of scar. Betrayal had shaped his adulthood. Friends he trusted had once sold his private documents to competitors. Business partners he nurtured stole opportunities behind his back. Even a woman he cared for used him for status only to humiliate him publicly. So lately he kept himself guarded, emotionally locked behind glass walls no one could break. The restaurant was supposed to be his peaceful escape, his reminder that he had rebuilt his life the right way. But peace rarely lasted long. This morning, his assistant called. "Mr. Hale, the status reports for the restaurant are ready. One more thing. The morning manager requested we review staff treatment. Some customers have been difficult lately." Adrian exhaled slowly. "When weren't they?" He said, "Prepare my car. I'll go there myself." He didn't say it out loud, but part of him wanted a change of scenery, something real, something honest, something that didn't remind him of boardrooms and betrayals. Maybe he needed to reconnect with the world outside his empire. Back at the restaurant, the 4 rich men from table 7 grew louder. Lila tried to ignore them, focusing instead on refilling cups and delivering plates. But she could feel their eyes on her. One of them, tall with a slick designer jacket, whispered just loudly enough, "Look at her, so nervous she might drop the plates." Another laughed. "Let her do it. Maybe we'll get the meal comped." Lila swallowed hard. She had served men like them all her life. Men who treated everyone like props in their own story. Men who mocked her soft-spoken nature and called it weakness. She hated that she was afraid of them. Hated that she let them make her small. But she approached them anyway because it was her job. They ordered expensive dishes, extra wine, dessert they wouldn't finish. They flirted crudely. One asked her name. Another said he preferred calling her sweetheart. Lila smiled because she had learned to survive this way. But when she walked toward the kitchen, she blinked back tears. She didn't know it yet, but someone else had just walked through the front door. A ripple went through the restaurant when Adrian Hale entered. People sat straighter. Servers whispered in the corner. Even the manager hurried forward to greet him. Adrian didn't want attention, but he was used to it. His presence carried weight, a quiet authority that made rooms fall still. His eyes swept the restaurant with a practiced calm. And then he saw her. Not clearly, just a glimpse of a young woman disappearing into the kitchen, shoulders tense, hands trembling around a tray. But something about her posture caught his attention. Fear, quiet humiliation, pain he recognized all too well. Before he could look longer, the manager interrupted. "We've had some trouble with difficult guests," she whispered. "I didn't want to bother you, but—" Adrian raised a hand. "I'll see it for myself. That's why I came." And for reasons he didn't fully understand, he hoped the trembling waitress wasn't part of the issue. Something in her reminded him of a younger version of himself, someone trying to hold the world together with shaking hands. Lila returned to table 7 with the bill on a small silver tray. She bowed her head politely, whispering, "Whenever you're ready." The men exchanged glances. Smirks curled. "Ready?" one said. "We're more than ready." Lila didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. But Adrian had turned just in time to see the men rise from their seats with exaggerated arrogance, pushing their chairs back loudly, laughing as if they owned the place. Lila froze. Their voices drifted across the room, and Adrian's eyes sharpened. He didn't know why, but something dark and familiar tightened in his chest. It felt like the moment before a storm hits, the moment when unfairness slithers into a room and demands to be challenged. He took a step closer. The world was already preparing for impact. If you're loving the setup so far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to follow the rest of this emotional journey.
The restaurant was humming with low chatter, the clinking of cutlery, and soft jazz drifting from the speakers. But at table 7, tension had begun to thicken like storm clouds. Lila stood a few steps away, clutching the leather bill folder. She felt the familiar tightening in her chest, the warning sign that something bad was coming. She had learned, over years of experience, that laughter could be the most dangerous sound when it came from people who held power. The men rose from their seats, stretching lazily as if they had just woken from a nap. The tallest one, wearing a gold watch that glinted obnoxiously under the chandelier, turned back to her with a smirk. "We're done here." Lila blinked. "Oh, okay. I can take your payment now." They laughed. Loud, echoing, exaggerated laughter designed to draw attention. A few diners looked over, frowning in confusion. "Payment?" another man sneered. "For what?" "Your meal, sir," she whispered, her voice barely carrying. The man closest to her leaned in, the scent of too much cologne mixing with alcohol on his breath. "We don't pay people like you." The words sliced through her like a blade. She felt her cheeks burn, not with anger, but humiliation. People like you, meaning beneath them, meaning disposable, meaning not worth basic respect. Lila's grip tightened on the bill folder. "Sir, I'm really sorry, but I can't let you leave without settling." Before she could finish, the man snatched the bill from her hand, looked at it, and ripped it in half. The tear echoed through the restaurant. Conversation stopped. Chairs froze mid-movement. Even the music seemed to dull. Lila inhaled sharply. "No, please, I need that. I'll get in trouble." He shrugged. Not a hint of shame crossed his face. "That's your problem, sweetheart." Lila felt something crack inside her, something small, fragile. Her hands shook visibly, and she instinctively stepped backward, as if his words were physical blows. A nearby couple watched with pity. A server took a hesitant step forward, but no one intervened. Because some people wore wealth like armor, and everyone else learned to avoid the fight. He approached quietly at first, unnoticed, his eyes locked onto the scene with laser focus. Every step contained a different emotion: shock, disbelief, the beginnings of anger. He stopped a few feet behind the four men, his posture still and controlled, his expression unreadable. Anyone who knew him would have recognized the danger. But the men didn't see him. They were too busy gloating. One of them raised his voice on purpose. "Come on, guys, let's get out of here. This place isn't worth a cent." Lila swallowed hard, chest tight. "Sir, you have to stop, please." The man turned back one more time, rolling his eyes dramatically, performing for whoever was watching. "We already told you, we don't pay waitresses who can't even—" A new voice cut in, low and calm. "That's interesting." The men froze mid-stride. The entire restaurant turned. Lila did too, slew, confused, trembling, because she recognized that voice from staff meetings, from company videos, from whispered stories among employees. Adrian Hale stepped forward, hands in his pockets, gaze sharp as a blade. Considering, he continued, "I own this place." All four men stiffened. A ripple of shock spread across the room. Adrian didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His controlled tone carried more force than shouting ever could. The man with the gold watch swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. "Mr. Hale, we didn't realize—" "I'm aware," Adrian replied coolly. "You didn't realize there were consequences." They exchanged panicked glances. Their arrogance evaporated instantly, replaced by fear wearing the mask of politeness. Adrian walked past them, ignoring their attempts to speak, and stopped directly in front of Lila. His voice softened, barely. "May I see the bill?" Her eyes were wide, her throat tight. He ripped it," she whispered. Adrian's jaw tightened. He reached out gently, taking the torn halves from her trembling fingers as if they were the most important papers in the room. There was a flicker of something else in his expression. Concern, maybe. Then he turned back to the four men. "Apologize to her," he said simply. Silence. The entire room held its breath. The tallest man forced a smile that looked like it hurt. "Of course, sir. We didn't mean any disrespect. Just having fun." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Humiliating a staff member is not fun." Another man stepped forward, desperate. "It was a misunderstanding." "No," Adrian's voice sharpened. "You understood perfectly. You chose to belittle someone because you assumed she had no one to defend her." Lila felt tears sting her eyes, not from pain this time, but from the shock of someone standing up for her with such conviction. Adrian continued, "You will apologize. Now." They muttered weak apologies, barely audible. Adrian raised a brow. Louder, since your insults were loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. The apologies came again, this time clear, forced, and mortifying for them. Lila bit her lip. She didn't know how to respond. Her instinct was to disappear, to fade into the background, to not be the center of anything. But Adrian's presence felt like a shield she didn't know she needed. And now, Adrian added, you will pay. Every cent. He handed the torn bill back to them. The men nodded quickly, fumbling for their wallets, suddenly eager to comply. One overpaid by several $100s, hoping it would appease Adrian's anger. It didn't. Adrian watched them closely until the transaction was completed. Only then did he speak again. Gentlemen, you are no longer welcome here. My staff will escort you out. The manager and two waiters moved swiftly, guiding the men toward the exit. They didn't dare protest. As soon as the door shut behind them, the restaurant erupted in whispers. Some applauded softly. Others smiled at Lila with newfound respect. But she was still frozen, clutching the empty tray, overwhelmed. Adrian turned back toward her slowly. His expression softened for the first time. You handled yourself with more restraint than most people could, he said gently. Her breath caught. I think so. And Adrian noticed. Not as a boss, not as a billionaire, but as a man who understood what it felt like to be humiliated and what it meant when someone finally intervened. If this moment hit you emotionally, tell us in the comments, what did you feel when Adrian stepped in?
Even after the four men were escorted out, the tremor in Lila's hands refused to settle. She stood near the service station, breathing slowly, trying to ground herself. The walls felt too bright, the air too tight. Every pair of eyes in the restaurant seemed to linger on her, not with mockery this time, but with sympathy or curiosity. But Lila didn't want attention. She wanted anonymity, safety, distance. The very things that shattered the moment Adrian Hale intervened. He was standing only a few feet away now, speaking quietly with the manager, but Lila felt the gravity of his presence like a pull she wasn't prepared for. He had defended her, publicly, fiercely, but that only made her more aware of him, more nervous around him. People like him weren't supposed to look twice at people like her. Not with anger, and certainly not with concern. She wished her heart would slow down, but it refused. Adrian finished speaking with the manager and walked back toward Lila. He moved with the same calm command he always had, but something was different now. His gaze softer, more searching. He didn't understand why the incident had hit him so personally. He had seen entitled customers before. He had seen staff mistreated before. But this was different. Something about Lila, her trembling silence, the way she tried to apologize even when she was the victim, had struck him unexpectedly deep. He didn't like it. He didn't like feeling anything he couldn't control. Lila, he said gently, stopping a respectful distance from her. She lifted her head, eyes wide. Yes, Mr. Hale? He noticed she couldn't stop fidgeting with the corner of her apron, a nervous habit, a vulnerable one. You don't need to be afraid, Adrian said quietly. You're not in trouble. You didn't do anything wrong. She nodded, but her voice betrayed her. I didn't want to make a scene. You didn't, he replied. They did. His certainty might have comforted another person, but for Lila, it only made her more self-conscious. She felt exposed under his attention, seen in a way she wasn't sure she deserved. I'm sorry if it caused issues, she murmured. Adrian paused. That apology again.
He felt something tighten in his chest. Don't apologize for being mistreated. Lila looked away. I wasn't trying to, I've gotten used to it. Her voice cracked slightly, and Adrian's calm facade cracked with it. He should have asked more questions. He should have stayed longer, reassured her, made sure she truly felt safe. But something in her trembling vulnerability unsettled him emotionally, pushing him into unfamiliar territory. He excused himself before he could say anything reckless. Take a few minutes, get some water. I'll be in my office upstairs if you need anything. She nodded, relief and disappointment tangled together in her chest. She didn't know which emotion confused her more. She only knew she needed to calm down before she embarrassed herself further. Meanwhile, Adrian climbed the stairs with tight shoulders and an even tighter jaw, trying to wrestle down the strange weight pressing on him. This shouldn't affect me. She's an employee. That's all. But the anger he felt when the men humiliated her, the shock in her eyes, the whispered, "Please," it replayed in his mind like a bruise he couldn't ignore. And the way she looked at him afterwards, gratitude wrapped in fear. He didn't want her to be afraid of him. He didn't want her to be afraid of anyone. Yet the intensity of his own reaction frightened him more than he'd admit. So he stayed in his office for hours, avoiding the pull. Downstairs, Lila tried to work, but every time she passed the spot where the confrontation happened, her chest tightened. Customers smiled at her now, kindly, even approvingly, but the attention made her uncomfortable. They whispered about her bravery, her composure. They mentioned Adrian's intervention, how protective he seemed. Protective. The word made her stomach flutter, and she hated that it did. He wasn't protecting her because he cared. He was protecting the restaurant's integrity, protecting the image of professionalism. That's all, she told herself. But another part of her whispered, then why did he look at you like that? By midday, her nerves were frayed, and when the manager finally approached her, Lila tensed. You're not in trouble, the manager assured her softly. I just want you to check in with Mr. Hale before your shift ends. He asked for a quick update. Lila froze. Me? Yes, just you. Why? He didn't say. Of course he didn't. Lila spent the rest of her shift dreading the conversation, imagining every possibility, most of them involving reprimands she somehow deserved. By the time she climbed the stairs to his office, her pulse was a storm. Adrian stood by the window when she entered, hands tucked into his pockets. Afternoon sunlight drew calm lines across his profile. He turned slowly. Their eyes met. Something unspoken flickered between them. Lila, he greeted. Come in. Her body reacted before her mind, shoulders tightening, breath shortening. The door clicked shut behind her, and the room suddenly felt too intimate. You asked for me? She said, fingers twisting nervously around each other. Adrian studied her trembling hands, and the memory of the morning washed over him. I wanted to make sure you were truly all right, he said. She blinked, startled. Oh, I'm fine. He frowned slightly. You're lying. Her breath hitched. She didn't realize the truth was so visible. I don't want to make problems, she whispered. Adrian exhaled, a mixture of frustration and empathy. Lila, you're not a problem. He stepped closer, slowly, carefully. And if you were, it wouldn't scare me. Her pulse spiked. Fight or flight? She wasn't sure. I'm just not used to people standing up for me, she admitted, voice trembling. Especially not someone like you. Someone like me? Adrian echoed. She flushed. Someone important. Adrian's jaw tightened, not in anger,
but in discomfort. "I'm not as important as you think," he said quietly. "Not compared to what happened this morning." Lila swallowed, emotions rising in her chest like a tide she didn't know how to manage. She needed distance. She needed space. So she stepped back. "I appreciate what you did, but you don't have to worry about me." Adrian's expression shifted. Confusion, then a flicker of hurt he masked quickly. He had expected fear. He had not expected dismissal. She didn't mean to push him away, but she did, and he retreated, not physically, but emotionally. Both of them stood there, tense, avoiding the truth neither wanted to name. And as Lila reached for the door, the manager rushed in without knocking. "Mr. Hale, we have a problem, a big one." Adrian straightened instantly. "What is it?" "A journalist is downstairs asking about this morning's incident. Someone recorded the confrontation and posted it online. It's already getting attention." Lila went pale. Adrian froze. The manager added, "They're asking for a statement from both of you." Both. Together. Adrian and Lila exchanged a stunned look as pressure closed around them. Whether they wanted it or not, they were now tied together in the public eye, and there was no avoiding each other anymore. Want to see what happens when they're forced to face each other and the growing tension between them?
The next morning arrived with the kind of soft, honey gold sunlight that made the restaurant look gentler than the day before. But inside, something had shifted. Everyone could feel it, like the air was holding its breath. Lena tried to move through breakfast service as if nothing had happened. She wiped counters, delivered pastries, refilled cups, and kept her head low. But every time she turned, she caught employees staring at her with a mix of awe and curiosity, because no one had ever seen their billionaire owner lose composure. No one had ever heard him raise his voice. No one had ever seen him touch someone's hand with such tenderness. And yet he had done all of that for her. She hated that the memory made her chest warm. She hated more that it kept replaying no matter how hard she tried to bury it. Worse, she knew it wasn't over because Marcus Grant, billionaire owner of the place, had decided he wasn't done either. At exactly 10 a.m., Lena was wiping down table 3 when a shadow interrupted her work. She didn't bother turning around. "Table's not ready yet. Give me 1 minute." "It's fine," Marcus said quietly. Her hand froze mid-wipe. She turned slowly. Her heart thudded painfully. He wasn't in a suit today. He wore a soft charcoal sweater pushed up to his elbows and dark slacks. The casualness somehow made him more intimidating, or maybe just more real. She swallowed. "Mr. Grant, you're here early." "I'm supposed to be," he said simply. "I'm meeting you." "Me?" she breathed. "Yes." He didn't smile. He didn't soften. He just said it as if the words were obvious. Lena's fingers tightened around the cloth. "Sir, I have a shift to finish." "You're on break now." "I didn't—" He lifted a slip of paper. "I approved it." Her stomach dropped. "Why?" His eyes flickered with something unreadable. "Because there's something we need to discuss." A small wave of panic surged through her. Was I in trouble? Was he going to reprimand me for something? Was he angry that I had cried in front of him? That I had asked him not to get involved? She didn't want this. Any of it. "Sir, I really don't want to be a problem." "You're not," he said firmly. "But I want you to come upstairs." Upstairs? His office? Private? No witnesses? Her breath stilled. Her heart thrashed painfully. "Why?" she asked again. He didn't hesitate this time, because it seems both of us said things yesterday that weren't complete truths. She stared at him. And the worst part? He was right. The walk upstairs felt too short. Marcus said nothing as he led her up the metal spiral staircase and down the quiet hallway to his office. He didn't look back to check if she was following. He knew she was. He always knew everything. Inside the office, the door clicked shut behind her, not in a threatening way, but in a way that sealed the world out. She stood by the door, refusing to move farther. Marcus walked to the far side of his desk and leaned against it. "You can sit." "I'm fine standing." He observed her like she was a riddle he was slowly solving. "All right." The silence pressed in. He broke it first. "Let's get the obvious out of the way. Yesterday wasn't about business, and I doubt it was just about the bill." Her throat tightened. She closed her eyes, leaning her back against the wooden door for support. "Why do you keep trying to fix things for me?" He exhaled, long and controlled. "I'm not trying to fix you, Lena." "Then what do you want?" "You were shaking," he said, "and nobody should shake alone." Her eyes snapped open. He looked almost angry, but not at her, at the world, at what it had done to her. "And you?" she asked quietly. "You didn't look very steady either." He didn't deny it. Instead, he pushed his hands into his pockets and spoke with a softness she'd never heard from him. "You said something yesterday. You told me I don't know you, that I don't know why you are the way you are." His jaw tightened. You were right." The admission startled her. "But you also made a mistake," he continued. "You assumed I didn't want to know." Her breath caught. "Why? Why would you want to understand anything about me?" His eyes locked on hers with sharp intensity. "Because I've watched people treat you like you're invisible. And yesterday, when those men spoke to you the way they did," his voice dropped lower, "I didn't feel calm. I felt furious." Her pulse hammered. "It wasn't professionalism. It wasn't duty. It wasn't because you're an employee." He leaned forward slightly, voice quiet but unshakable. "It was personal." The room throbbed with silence, thick, electric, dangerous. She pushed off the door slightly, breath uneven. I don't understand." "You don't need to," he murmured. "Just don't run from it." "I'm not—" "You are," he said gently. "Every day." She didn't respond. She couldn't. He took one slow step toward her. Just one. Not enough to touch her, but enough for the air between them to shift, warm and intimate. I can't get involved with my boss," she whispered. "I'm not asking you to." "What are you asking then?" "For honesty." Her throat burned. "About what?" He held her gaze, quiet, unblinking, unyielding. "About why your hands were shaking yesterday, long before those men ever walked in." The truth hit her like a blow. Because he had seen her. Really seen her. And Lena, who had survived homelessness, poverty, humiliation, and years of invisibility, didn't know how to handle being seen. She turned her face away. "I don't want to talk about it." He knew. "Then why?" "Because whatever it is," he said softly, "you're carrying it alone. And you don't have to." Her chest tightened so painfully she had to take a step back. She was shaking again. Marcus noticed. "Sit, Lena." She did this time. Not because he told her to, because she couldn't trust her legs. He didn't move closer. He didn't press her. He just stood there, offering a presence she didn't know how to accept, but couldn't reject either. The room felt unbearably tender. A fragile thread stretched between them, something raw, unspoken, inevitable. And as she finally lifted her eyes, he held her gaze with a softness she'd never imagined he was capable of. "Whatever comes next," he said quietly, "you're not facing it by yourself." Her breath trembled, because deep down, beneath fear, beneath caution, beneath wounds, she didn't want him to leave her alone. Not anymore. The emotional distance between them shrank to a thin, vulnerable line. A connection had formed, fragile, undeniable, and impossibly dangerous. Just as she gathered the courage to speak, a knock rattled the door. Urgent, sharp. His assistant's voice broke the moment. "Mr. Grant, there's a problem downstairs." The fragile bond held for one last second, then snapped. And heartbreak, Lena realized, was already on its way.
The moment the knock shattered the silence, Marcus straightened, his expression tightening back into something sharp and executive. The warmth that had grown in his voice, in his posture, in the quiet space between them, gone in a breath. "Stay here," he told her softly. But Lena was already pushing up from the chair. "If something's wrong downstairs, I need to go." He hesitated for 1 second too long, a second where she saw his conflict. He didn't want her walking into chaos again, not when she was still trembling. But the knock came again, urgent. "Sir, you really need to come." Marcus nodded once, then opened the door. Lena moved to follow, but he stopped her with one hand on the doorframe, not touching her, just blocking the path. "I mean it," he said quietly. "Please, stay here." Her heart stung at the word please, but she nodded. Then he was gone. The door shut, and for the first time since entering his office, she felt the full weight of being alone. Downstairs, the restaurant buzzed with a low, anxious hum. Lena could hear muffled voices rising through the floorboards, chairs scraping, something metallic falling, a man shouting something she couldn't make out. She stood still only for a few seconds before pacing toward the window. She pressed her ear lightly to the glass pane. No clear words, just tension building like a storm. She shouldn't interfere. She shouldn't leave the office. She shouldn't disobey him. She heard her own breath tremble. "He's not your keeper," she reminded herself. "He's not responsible for you." But the flutter in her chest said something far more confusing. She hated that she cared. She hated that she wanted to know where he was. She hated that she wanted to go downstairs because he was there, and danger only made her worry more. Her hands curled at her sides. What if it was those 4 men? What if they'd returned? What if something worse was happening? What if someone got hurt? What if he did? Her fear made the decision for her. She opened the door and stepped into the hallway. When she descended the spiral stairs, the scene hit her with the force of a punch. The 4 rich men were back, and they weren't alone. Cameras, microphones, reporters with hungry eyes, phones pointed everywhere. One cameraman shoved forward. "Mr. Grant, sources say you verbally threatened these men yesterday. Would you like to comment?" Lena froze. "Threatened?" Another reporter yelled. "Is it true you physically intimidated them? Did you assault one of them? Are you abusing your power?" The men stood fake-stricken, hands clasped, acting like victims. Then one pointed directly at Lena. "There," he shouted dramatically. "Her, the waitress. She provoked everything." Every eye snapped to her. Her heart stuttered. Marcus turned sharply, shocked, widening his eyes when he saw her. He had told her to stay upstairs. He had tried to shield her. But she was here now, right in the center of the storm. One cameraman shoved a mic toward her. "Miss, did you manipulate Mr. Grant into confronting customers? Did you seduce him? Were you involved in a workplace relationship?" Lena's stomach dropped. Marcus stepped forward immediately. "Stop. Don't speak to her." "She's the reason he snapped," one of the rich men yelled. "She's been spending time alone with him in his office." Lena flinched. The room erupted. Cameras, accusations, lies, noise swelling like a tidal wave. Marcus's jaw clenched with deadly calm. "You're done, all of you." But Lena's world was already spinning, because she knew exactly what this meant. Not for him.
For her. She wasn't protected. She wasn't respected. She wasn't safe. She was a target. Again. And this time, standing next to Marcus only made her more vulnerable. Her breathing hitched. Panic clawed at her ribs. Marcus saw it, breaking through the crowd instantly. He reached out as if to steady her, but she stepped back so fast it made him freeze. The hurt that flashed in his eyes was brief, but real. She whispered, trembling, "This can't happen. I can't be the center of this." "Marcus, they're blaming me, Marcus. They're lying, but people will believe them." He paused. That hesitation, just 1 second, was enough to break her. She felt sick. "You see," she whispered, "this is why I can't be near you. This is why I said I don't want attention." His voice lowered. "I can fix this." "No," she said shakily. "You'll only make it worse." He swallowed, the muscle in his jaw ticking hard. "I'm not going to let anyone hurt you." "But they already are." Silence cracked between them. A silence filled with things neither wanted to say out loud. The rich men watched gleefully. The reporters filmed every flicker of emotion. Phones captured every tremble in her voice. She felt exposed, humiliated, and worst of all, she felt like she was dragging him down with her. "This is my fault," she whispered. "It's not. If I hadn't been shaking yesterday, that's not why I stepped in. If I hadn't cried, that's not why I raised my voice." She met his eyes, dark, pained, vulnerable. "Then why?" she breathed. His answer was quiet. "Because I care." Her breath faltered. Everything in her went still. She wanted to believe him, but belief had a cost. Before she could speak, a reporter shouted, "So you are in a relationship with her?" Cameras surged closer. Time snapped. Fear slammed into her chest. She shook her head wildly. No, we're not. We're nothing. I'm just a waitress." Marcus flinched as if she'd hit him. Her voice cracked. "And you're my boss, that's all. That's all it ever was." The room gasped. Marcus went still. Completely still. The kind of stillness that meant something inside him had locked into place. Pain, shock, betrayal. It was all there, in his eyes, in the slight widening of his chest, in the way his hands flexed at his sides. "Marcus," he said hoarsely, "don't do this." But she was already stepping backward, because this public humiliation, this chaos, this spotlight was her nightmare, and she dragged him into it. She glanced up at him one last time, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry." Then she turned and ran. The alley behind the restaurant was cold, damp, and quiet compared to the storm she'd escaped. She leaned her back against the brick wall and slid to the ground, choking on breaths that wouldn't steady. Why did I say that? Why did I hurt him? Why does this hurt so much? Footsteps approached. Soft. Controlled. Marcus. He didn't call her name, didn't tell her to stop, didn't demand explanations. He simply stood a few feet away, breathing just as unevenly as she was, Lena murmured, "Look at me." She didn't. He stepped closer. "Please." That word, again, broke something in her. She lifted her eyes, and what she saw nearly destroyed her. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cold. He was hurt. Deeply, quietly hurt. Not from pride, but from her distance. "Why?" he asked softly. "Why did you say we're nothing?" She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "Because they were recording. Because they'll twist everything. Because staying close to you ruins your reputation and my life." "I don't care about my reputation." "Well, I do." Silence. He knelt down in front of her, lowering himself to her level. It was a gesture far more intimate than touch. "You think you ruin everything you touch," he softly. She froze. "But that's not true." "You don't know me." "I want to." She squeezed her eyes shut. "You shouldn't." "Lena, you deserve someone strong," she whispered. "Not someone who falls apart in public. Not someone who's terrified of everything. Not someone who's been—" Her voice cracked. "Broken." That was the word she didn't want to say. Marcus inhaled sharply. "Lena, you are not broken." "Yes, I am. I've been a loon my whole life. People leave. People take advantage. People hurt me. And now you." Her voice faltered. "I don't want you to be another person who looks at me differently because I've been damaged." He leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't see damage." She swallowed hard. "I see strength," he continued. "I see someone who survived things most people couldn't. I see someone who works, who tries, who keeps moving, even when the world keeps knocking her down." Her lip trembled. He held her gaze. "And I see someone He paused, searching her eyes. "Someone I care about more than I should." Her breath caught. The world tilted. "And if you think I'm walking away because some reporter shouted lies," he said quietly, "you don't know me at all." Her eyes brimmed. "Marcus." He reached out, slowly, carefully, and seeing she didn't pull away, brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The gentlest touch she'd ever known. "Don't run from me," he whispered. "Not because you're scared of what the world thinks, and definitely not because you think you're not enough." She let out a broken sob. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "I know," he whispered. "I don't know how to do this. I'll go slow." "What if I ruin it?" "Then we'll fix it." Her shoulders shook. "What if you regret it?" He shook his head slowly. "I already regret letting you walk out that door." The confession shattered her. She leaned into him, finally, fully, and he caught her, his arms wrapping around her carefully, protectively grounding her. For the first time, she let herself be held, not as a burden, not as a problem, but as someone he chose. Chosen. The one thing she had never been. After a long moment, he whispered, "Let me walk beside you, not ahead, not behind, just beside." She breathed against his shoulder, the fear and the longing tangled together. "Okay," she whispered. One word. A fragile yes, but a real one. He exhaled against her hair, as if that single word released something heavy inside him. When she finally pulled back, her hands slipped into his.
He squeezed it gently. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. Together, they stood. Together, they walked. Back towards the restaurant. Back towards the mess. Back towards the world. But no longer alone. And as they stepped inside side by side, every camera turned toward them. And for the first time in years, Lena didn't feel small. She felt seen. She felt strong. She felt chosen. And in that moment, with Marcus beside her, she wasn't afraid anymore. The men who once mocked her now watched her walk out beside the man who defended her. She wasn't the shy waitress anymore. She was the woman who reclaimed her voice. If you enjoyed this journey of justice and transformation, hit the like button. Share your thoughts in the comments.